We are joined by Tim MacMahon of ESPN, who's been all over the aftermath, the firing, the reporting on Nico Harrison and his dismissal from the Mavs. Morning, Tim. How we doing?
Howdy, partners. It's early. What do you want?
It's 9 o'clock, 9:01, and we get the hits early. Oh, boy. You know you work in sports. You're at the games, and you say this is early.
You know who gives us that all the time at 9 o'clock, too, is Archer. Archer will be like, it's early. Yeah. It's 9 o'clock.
I'm telling you, man. Listen, I will say this. You don't sleep a whole lot right now covering the Dallas Mavericks.
No. All right, I want you to take us through your reporting stuff. I know you mentioned that Dumont is kind of not I want to say taking over the Anthony Davis return, but at least he's got to clear him before he returns. Should we read into that at all?
Well, it's obviously a drastic difference than a year ago, and there's some irony here. So what Dumont is basically saying is, listen, I am siding with Johan Dillsborough, the director of health and performance for the Mavericks, who is saying, I think that AD is still at risk of aggravating the calf or worse. And obviously we all know what that could mean.
For sure.
If he returns right now, I don't want to clear him. AD's medical staff, which is also on the Mavs payroll this year, has given him the green light. They say, hey, he's ready to roll. AD wants to play. It wasn't just about saving Nico Harrison's job. He's a proud pro. He wants to be on the floor. He wants to compete. Dumont is siding with Dillsborough and saying we are going to err on the side of caution. We cannot take a risk of a potentially catastrophic injury until he sees, I'm told, clear medical data indicating that there is no significant risk of aggravation or worse with that calf. He's not going to give AD the green light. Now, what's the irony there? Well, one of the last straws that Nico Harrison used to convince Patrick Dumont that they should dump Luka and that Luka wasn't, really fully committed to the Mavericks and that sort of thing was that Luka wouldn't come back from his calf strain and Luka's medical staff wouldn't push him back from his calf strain on the timeline that Nico Harrison was pushing. And Nico, as you might imagine, was on board with AD coming back in this case as well. So Dumont is definitely more hands-on. Definitely, I mean, I knew Nico was in trouble when I heard that Dumont was weighing in on this decision over the weekend when AD had targeted Saturday night in Washington. I mean, look, we knew Nico was in trouble for a while, but I'm talking about I knew it was like very, very touch and go. I thought it week to week, it ended up being day to day. But when Dumont started weighing in on this, saying, no, I know you've targeted this as your return date, but if Johan's not clearing you, I'm not going to give it the green light. And that happened over the weekend in Washington.
Tim, was there a specific event other than that kind of you could point to, like that was the moment where this became impossible to recover from Nico?
No, that was more a symptom, right?
Right.
Yeah. Dude, I would say the specific event that was going to be impossible to recover from. I mean, how far back do you want to go? But really,
the trade.
But I mean, exactly. And dude, remember the night Luka came back and he lit the Mavs on fire? Remember how deafening the Fire Nico chants were that night? And the anger and the fury towards Nico never really diminished. The only even after getting gifted a potential face of the franchise for the next 2 decades in Cooper Flagg, the only possible chance they had to kind of, I'm not even going to say eliminate it, but at least minimize it, mitigate it, would be to get off to a good start, to have a good product on the floor. And, this is not a good basketball team. Are there injuries yet? Sure. You can't give Nico a pass for AD injuries given the durability history, given the fact the guy was hurt when you made the trade, and given the fact that one reason you used to justify trading a 25-year-old 5-time All-NBA selection just took your franchise to the finals was because he thought his body was going to break down. So when the fans, when their primary focal point is just fury at Nico, and that is the overwhelming sentiment, and it weighs on players, and they feel like it's a home court disadvantage, and they're the worst offensive team in the league, and Luka's leading the league in scoring. The question became, how could you justify not firing him? Like, what are you waiting on? And Dumont came to that realization, got on the private jet, came down here for the purpose of firing him. I do think it's hilarious that people think that some kid walked up to Dumont in a Lakers jersey, and that's when it hit him. No, trust me, the decision was made before Dumont got to the arena that night. Now, if the Mavericks hold off the Bucks, if Cooper Flag has the game winner, do they still do it the next day? I don't know, but Nico was not going to be the Mavericks general manager a whole lot longer.
So if they were 8-3, but the fan anger was still there, it probably doesn't happen now, but it eventually still would have happened.
So I would say in that situation, I think there's a pretty decent chance it's not a midseason deal. At best, going into this year, it was year to year. I always kind of felt like it was more month to month, and it got week to week and day to day real quick.
Tim, when did it change? We're talking with Tim MacMahon here on 105 through the Fan. Tim, when do you think the evolution really began for Patrick Dumont? Like when the seeds were planted of, okay, maybe this wasn't right, and when do you think it really accelerated?
I mean, I think that he realized it last year, and it was a rude awakening. Let's just forget about even the basketball product, right? Patrick Dumont is a businessman. The dude understands the bottom line, and they were bleeding revenue last year, just bleeding revenue. Forget the emotion, forget the outrage, the anger, the fact that, AD got hurt again in his first game after rushing back, by the way, because there was a bunch of heat on Nico, all the stuff that went wrong on the floor. He was sold on Luka Doncic being a terrible business investment. We can't give this guy a supermax. No way he's going to be worth it. He came to realize, not only was Luka a supermax player, but the supermax was a great investment because Luka was what drove the business of the Mavericks. I mean, I know the sellout streak technically just ended in October. First of all, give me a break. We all realize that was phoning along. But, dude, you looked around that arena last year, attendance plummeted. All the associated revenue that goes along with that. The jersey sales, their TV subscription product. I mean, they were really tanking, bleeding money. Getting the gift of Cooper Flag from the basketball gods or whatever conspiracy theory you might want to believe in, that mitigated that some. But when you sell your boss, a businessman, on this from a business perspective, and it ends up being just like one of the worst financial decisions you could possibly make, that's gonna erode any trust. And honestly, Nico should have been fired 2 days after last season because there was not going to be any coming back from this. And I this is me speculating. I think winning the lottery gave him a little bit more time. Not that there was any skill involved there, but just, okay, hey, maybe there's a chance for a fresh narrative. And then the other thing here is billionaire dudes don't like admitting that they made colossal mistakes. And firing Nico was an admission that Dumont really just made a historic mistake less than 1 year into being a governor of an NBA franchise. That's something that he has to live with. That's something he has to learn from. I do think he's learned a lot from it. And, they've got to pivot into the Cooper Flag era, and they've got to do everything in their power to be able to build a sustainable contender around this kid because he is, a second chance for them.
Tim MacMahon joining us here on 105 through the Fan. Tim, what did you think about the statement that was put out? Obviously, that was one that was not just written from the notebook of Patrick Dumont. I'm sure that was a carefully crafted statement. But what did you think about the statement, and what do you think the PR strategy moving forward is for the Mavericks to make sure, all right, let's try to get this business back to where it needs to be?
I don't I don't believe. I know there's not plans immediately for Patrick Dumont to do any sort of media. I am of the biased, selfish belief that he should do a sit-down interview with me.
Us too. Yeah, us too.
But I do. In all seriousness, I do think that it would be in his best interest to take some verbal, visual accountability beyond just the letter. And the letter kind of danced around the elephant in the room, which obviously we all know was the Luka trade, and just how awful of a decision that was. And it was one that at the time, I mean, I was talking to an agent yesterday, and obviously I've talked to a lot of people, but he was just like, there's nothing like that just completely shocked the entire NBA, where everybody's talking to each other and like, how does this make sense?
Right.
So I think Dumont does have to take some verbal, visual accountability for that. That would be my advice. I don't know if he's planning to do it, but look, he's also got his hands full. They've got to kind of figure out what this looks like for the time being. There's going to be a thorough search for a replacement. Dennis Lindsey's been a name that's been thrown out there. Certainly Mark Cuban has been banging that drum. I do think he will be a candidate, and is a very good candidate. I think they're going to talk to other people who have been, who've had experience and success building NBA rosters. You can go down the list of people who are available there. I think there's internal candidates, and look, an internal candidate might include the guy who's coaching the team. So there's a lot of business to be done. And my sense is that Patrick would prefer to focus on the business and hopefully put together a product that will, that will speak for itself. And I'll just be real honest with you. While I think Patrick has to take some accountability that people can hear, that people can see, I think he also has to be careful discussing basketball, because if we're being real, I'm just going to be blunt. The man doesn't do well discussing basketball.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
championship games.
Yeah, that's true. So, are they do you think they're in a rush to hire a GM? Like, how long do you think this process will take? And are they is there a chance Dirk gets welcomed back more into the fray now?
I know that they understand that having Dirk back in the fray is very important and is something that will be a priority for them. Now, I don't think that's in a decision-making role, but even, look, just Dirk saying, hey, I'm back on board with the franchise. I'm sitting next to Patrick Dumont at a few games a year. I'm waving to the fans, like they've got me back. And I don't want to speak for Dirk, but I'm of the firm belief that was never, ever going to happen with Nico running the basketball operations department. I believe there's probably a chance it happens now. He's still extremely tight with Michael Finley, with Jason Kidd. Dirk loves the Mavs. The loyalty never fades away and all those sort of things. I just don't think I'd be surprised if he's in any sort of decision-making role or like a full-time job. The man's got a full-time job now. Amazon Prime, They get to sit on couches in casual clothes. I got to give them a call and see if I can weasel my way into that. We got to wear suits at ESPN. And then I forgot what else you asked me, to be honest.
Are they in a rush to hire a GM?
Oh, no, it's not going to be a rush process.
So you don't maybe not even by the trade deadline. They may not have anybody. That's not an interim. I
don't know. Is the best answer I can give you there. I'm not sure about that, and I'm not sure that Patrick Dumont knows.
Tim, we appreciate it, man. We know you're busy. We always appreciate you coming on with us.
Adios, amigos. It's been a pleasure.
Tim MacMahon, ESPN, waking up early for us here.
A gentleman and a scholar. He is.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's the best at what he does.